Hello, welcome. My name is Aaron Collier. I'm the head of programming at the Toronto Real Asian International Film Festival. I hope you enjoyed our presentation of Unsung Voices 9. Just a reminder that if you're watching live on CineSend and you want to ask our guests a question, you do it through the CineSend chat. There should be a bar on the top where you can enter our question, and it will go through our moderator, and we'll be able to ask our guests at the end of our discussion. If you're on a phone, the chat is at the bottom, so just take a look at that. I wanted to let you know that this is the 9th edition of Unsung Voices, Relations Summer Video Production Workshop. And though this is the 9th time around, it was unlike any previous editions, since Unsung Voices in 2020 was conducted entirely online and across Canada. And so these 4 remarkable young filmmakers produced each of their own works in their own unique filmmaking bubbles. So really excited to have them here to finally talk about their work. They've worked so hard on these, and I just want to let you know that our guests, their participation was made possible with support from the CBC. So I'm going to welcome our filmmakers. First, I'd like to welcome Marianna Chan. Hi, Marianna. Oh, can't seem to hear you, but all right. Can we bring on, how about let's bring on Angelina Guo? Hi, Ange.
Hello.
Hi. While we figure out Marianna's audio, I'm wondering if you can introduce the name of the film that you did in Unsung Voices 9 and where you're joining us from tonight.
Yeah, of course. So I'm joining everybody from Montreal, and the title of my movie is Teach Me How to Disappear.
All right. And what's the title in French?
Apprends-moi à disparaître.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds fancy.
Next I wanted to bring on Kim Hyung. Hi, Hyung. Can you also say the name of the film that you did and also where you're joining us from? Oh. I think we didn't hear you, Hyung. Can you repeat?
Sorry.
There we go.
Oh. Sorry about that.
I'm sure it was very beautiful what you said, but can you say it over again?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Hyung, or Kim Hyung, and I'm the director of the film Ilyoir, or in English, Sunday.
All right. And last but not least, our next filmmaker is Aiden Chan.
Hi everyone, my name is Aiden. I'm the director of Home Water, and I'm based in Vancouver.
And yeah, okay. And you're joining us from a special place, I believe. Can
yes,
you,
a very special backdrop today.
Show us, yeah.
Here in a lobby.
All right.
I've taken a 2-day course at a local hotel, so figure out this is the best way to join everyone today.
All right. And I think we have Marianna's issue fixed, so bring back Marianna Chan. There we are. Hi, Marianna. No. So believe it or not, folks, as we mentioned, we did our sessions all online this summer, and as you may imagine, there were times where we had a few sessions like this. I thought I turned on the mute. But this is one of the things that we all are dealing with in this new space. So so hopefully we can get Marianna on. But are we good? Can we try Marianna's audio one more time? Oh, okay. We're not quite there yet. Okay. So we'll get to Marianna in a second. I don't want to. we'll have plenty of time to talk to Marianna. I wanted to one of the things that was different with this year, in addition to it being in this online space, was that for the first time we gave you all a theme to deal with, or as a jumping off point. And so I'm wondering, and the theme was interior. And it was meant to be something that's kind of broad, that you could kind of go in different directions. So, when you first saw that theme, which was part of the application process, what were some things that you were thinking about? And then what were some of the things, what were your first thoughts about the theme? And then what were some of the things that you were thinking about doing with that theme? So maybe, Anj, can we start with you?
Yeah, of course. So I interpreted it in a very straightforward way. So the first term that came to mind was introspection. And so I kind of just reflected back on some meaningful experiences that I had when I was a bit younger, and then I chose to translate that into my project.
Okay. And how about you, Hyung? Can you talk about some of your first thoughts about the theme and what it kind of brought up for you?
I think for me, the word interior made me really think about like literal interior spaces, particularly the ones that I've occupied. So if you've seen the film, you know that my dad is a pastor and he's the head pastor of his church. So growing up, I often, like my childhood is filled with growing up within church spaces. So I really wanted to explore kind of the interior of church spaces and what it means to me, what it means to my parents, and kind of what it means to other people. Yeah, I think like that was the main concepts that I was jumping off with the theme.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to come back around and ask you more about that. So how about you, Aiden? What were some thoughts?
Definitely for the theme for interior, I knew that because we were in quarantine that we'd be like living inside for an extended period of time. And for me, who's such an outdoors person, I really wanted to emphasize the fact that just because we're here at home doesn't mean that we can't take time when we're allowed to go outside and explore the wilderness. And I knew that joining the program and hearing the theme, that to find my interiority, I'd have to go outside. And I felt like that was accomplished with this film and with my summer as a whole.
Well, let's stay with you, Aiden, for that. What we see in your film, Home Water, is you are with one of your closest friends, Aiden, who is also named Aiden, and we kind of see him going through his own kind of like his own process in dealing with his interiority too, right? Being in Vancouver versus where you ended up in the film at Cortez Island. So what was that like to see somebody so close to you going through this process?
Definitely with the whole name similarities, it almost felt like I was experiencing it myself, to say the least about that. But to see someone like him, who I had just really met 1 year ago, to see him go through that in front of me, it was extremely eye-opening, and I knew that it was something I wanted to capture. And I felt like there were a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And just from seeing him experience that firsthand, it brought a lot of kind of introspection to the people around him, even when he couldn't admit it himself. We really appreciated his efforts and just his presence around us.
And do you think there was something in the process of documenting that gave it maybe a different effect because you were there, because you were making this film? Did it end up having, because there was this intent behind it, did it maybe have a different type of meaning? And then also watching it back over again, and I assume he's seen the film too. So I'm wondering what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I guess the way that he progressed throughout the summer, he was working this kind of, he would call it a dead-end job, and then he would call it like a dead-end union job, and he felt like that was his future. But we really wanted to take him back to where he was from, and that was Cortez Island with his grandmother. And with us being there, it really opened his eyes, because we physically placed him in somewhere that he felt extremely spiritual and extremely emotionally attached, that he ended up quitting his job and wanting to move back to Cortez. And I think that the fact that we were able to bring him there through the making of this film, that really helped him go through that process as well.
Great. Well, thanks for that.
Thank you.
So, Anj, I wanted to ask you, you know, you have a very extensive background in photography, and I think we see that a lot in the film. And so what was some of that background? How did that inform your approach to your film?
That's a great question, actually. I think just generally speaking, when it came to doing photography on the film, like I had a very precise picture of what I wanted to make, and also the framing to me was very specific, and every decision had to mean something. The choice of black and white as well was very informed by my background in photography, because I wanted the lights and the shadows to contrast in a very specific way to convey sentiments that may be more highlighted in black and white, at least for me. But yeah, it was definitely very intentional.
Yeah, and we definitely see, you know, it was interesting for us to see your kind of behind the scenes photos, and all of you actually took some really amazing behind the scenes photos. That when those behind the scenes photos were in color, it was just kind of like this like stark thing where just like, whoa, like this world is completely different than the world of the film. And so I think that the way you, or the intent behind that black and white and having this kind of gradient look was really effective. So I see that we have Marianna back, and hopefully we've sorted some things out. So one of the well, let's have you introduce the name of your film and where you're joining us from tonight.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yay, okay, you can hear me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Marianna. The film I made was How You See Me, and I'm joining from Montreal.
All right, and one of the things while you were away is we asked everybody that we talked about the theme of this year's program, which was also new to us in addition to this online space. And so when you first heard about that theme, what was some of your first thoughts about it? And then what were you thinking that you could do with that theme?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, it was kind of basic. I was like, well, interior, you know, we're inside all the time. But for me, kind of what I settled on was my interior, what's going on inside of my head. And so, yeah, I was trying to think of what issues were kind of weighing heavy on my mind at the time. And yeah, that's kind of what came out. Yeah.
And let's keep it there with you. You know, we talked a little bit about Anj's background in another artistic discipline. So
yeah,
you are studying scenography. So maybe you can mention what that is, and then also and that you're also originally from Saskatoon. So maybe you can talk about the artistic influences and some of these kind of like I guess a regional experience too that you brought to your film.
Yeah, so yeah, right now I'm studying scenography, which is set and costume design for theater, film, circus, so everything, yeah. And before that, I studied illustration, so a lot of like visual arts background, which I think really helps me just like I have a clear idea of what images I want to bring for this film, and yeah, that kind of helped. And yeah, I guess my experience is, yeah, I'm from Saskatoon. I was born and raised there, but it's not really a place like that's home, I guess, anymore, or maybe it never was. So that's kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot too. And there are diverse populations there, but it's not necessarily a place where, I don't know, yeah, I think if you're a bit different, you don't necessarily feel like you fit in. So yeah, I kind of talk about that in my film. as well.
Yeah. And I know that in the summertime we as you were working on this piece and kind of designing the set of your miniature, is that there was some things that you worked in that were kind of references to prairie. To the prairies. Can you talk about a little bit some of those design elements?
Yeah. So if you've seen the film, there's a lot of different, or not different. It's the same prairie wheat field. Because I love wheat fields. I realized that after leaving Saskatoon, I was like, oh, I miss like fields. Which is kind of a funny thing. But yeah, and it's funny because you feel this like longing. You miss home, but you're not really from there. So it's this weird thing of like, you're missing this place that you don't belong to. So there's that. And yeah, one of the images on the background, it's like the shape of Saskatchewan. I mean, it's a bit literal, but I'm like, I don't know if anyone really notices those things. So I like that it was there. Yeah.
I'm sure all the people from Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
The rest of us were like, what's that rectangle?
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. I wanted to ask Hyung actually two questions. So because we're talking about that each of you, including Aiden, you have kind of different artistic disciplines that you kind of brought craft-wise into these projects, and so maybe you can talk a little bit about the process of how you did some of the images. You have a lot of techniques that you employed in this. Painstaking techniques and processes. If you all were to see the behind the scenes pictures.
I would say there's a lot of trial and error with this filmmaking process. Originally, there was stuff with like watercolor that I wanted to do. So I wanted to make each frame, like I wanted to have a whole animated sequence using watercolor paintings, but that obviously is very labor intensive and I wasn't getting the effects that I wanted. So what I ended up doing was I ended up kind of relying on archival imagery a lot more than I thought I originally planned to. And I had both the watercolor paintings and sort of archival imagery, but I found that like personal photographs, they contained a lot more power to them in terms of the narrative that's kind of instilled within the photos, as well as the fact that it's like a piece of physical time that I'm able to like physically tamper with, whether it's through ripping or crumbling or like putting it back together, which I kind of do throughout. And that was like more of my animated sequence of me just taking the picture, scanning it, and then ripping it a little, scanning it in over and over again to kind of achieve the main animation, which you see in the beginning. Yeah.
So that scanner was getting some work.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mean in terms of the watercolor, you did paint some images, and then you were scanning those as well, right? So it was very kind of analog work.
Yeah. Some of the stuff was done digitally, so I had a mix between digital and like kind of analog. So there's some rotoscoping imagery or rotoscoping that I did, which I took a video and then I rotoscoped digitally by importing all the video files into Photoshop. And then, as I mentioned before, with the archival imagery or the photographs, that was done like through a scanner and done more in an analog stop motion way.
Yeah, and it should be said too that for the folks watching out there that we had about 2.5 months or so to produce these films. It's 2020. We're trying to get everything together and get them done. But so that just gives you a little bit of scope about this project, and that these 4 filmmakers were kind of like producing under. It's not a lot of time to make a work, so I think it's really impressive. I did want to ask too, you mentioned in your intro, Hyung, that like you see in the film, you're a pastor's kid, and I know in the process you were kind of wanting to kind of make a bridge a little bit between kind of parents' first generation experience with church as a space, and also your second generation. So you know, maybe that you have a little bit of distance from you know, the madness of the summer, getting this done. Like, how do you feel about what your piece says about that and speaks to those generations?
I think my film, so originally the film was meant to be, it was supposed to include more of kind of the idea of the interior for what it was for my parents, who are first generation Korean immigrants. So when my dad started the church here in Canada, he originally made it because he saw a need for like community within first generation Koreans, because, you know, they were all new to this country. They all didn't speak they all didn't speak English fluently, and they were all very cut off from, you know, Korea, from like their home country. So he really envisioned, you know, church as a place where first generation Koreans could gather, not only for religious purposes, but also to find that sense of community, and to support one another and really build a new network. And so for them, I found that the church, like the church interior, the church space was really imperative for them, and it was super important. Whereas me as second generation, because I'm more well-adjusted, this need doesn't necessarily exist. So I was really trying to portray, like, if this need doesn't exist, what does this church interior mean to me? And I think what this film became was kind of one answer that's given. And I found that this film, surprisingly, it works as a really interesting way to open up kind of different conversations, because I had a conversation with my own pastor recently, and he gave me a very interesting sort of response where he said, you know, that sort of that Korean identity attached to like churches nowadays, some people might find it very distancing, because if they're not Korean, they might not be able to mingle necessarily in these spaces. Whereas some second generation immigrant kids like me who don't get the chance to grow up with their cultural heritage find it through spaces like church. So I just find it being like a conversation opener for generations to maybe start thinking about what the church space means, what it will mean to them, and what they want it to mean for them.
Thanks. One of the things that we also did this summer too, and if folks have been following Relation.com all day, we had an earlier session with the mentors in this program, and so each of you was paired up with a mentor, which we were never able to have the ability to do before. So Anj, you were paired with Joyce Wong. Hyung, you were paired with Leslie Loxi Chan. Aiden, you were with Oyong. And Marianna, you were with Ann Koizumi. I want to know what the experience was like to talk to these mentors, not even just necessarily the one-on-one time, but I think, you know, what was, well, I don't mean to answer your question, but because I was in the sessions with you, one of the things like I observed that was really great is how you really found great you know, things that inspired you in other people's mentors as well. And so that, for instance, like Hyung's, your piece is kind of like this conversation that is very similar to Anne's piece In the Shadow of the Pines, which is showing that relation. So I'm just curious to what was some of your thoughts or experiences with these mentors. And I should also note, we also had some other mentors as well, like Albert Shin, Keenan Leduk, who we talked to earlier today, and Kat Jamie, Amanda Min Wong. So we had a great roster, but I'm curious to know what was kind of your experiences with these mentors. And maybe we can start with Aiden. Sorry to make this like class, but you know, I don't want to just put a question out there and have nobody start.
Yeah, for my mentor, Oyong was a very great resource. He's a documentary filmmaker who's made features and shorts in the past as well. But his focus is definitely documentary editing, and that's definitely the hardest part of making a documentary. And I found that out firsthand. I thought that when I finished the filming, I was like, oh, I'm done. This program's over, finally. But then I realized there's weeks, and almost, I think I did more editing than actual planning and filming. And I was definitely humbled by that experience. And throughout that process, Hyung, he really challenged me to make sure that I was telling the story that I originally wanted to tell. And I think that's the role of a mentor anyway, is to make sure that you know what you want to do, and to make sure that you do what you wanted to do and what you set out to do in the beginning, and to help you kind of guide the way, and not completely tell you exactly which path to take, but to tell you that if you're going to go down a certain path, that you have to trust yourself, and to trust the people that helped get you there as well. And through watching his films, he had a documentary where he traveled to North Korea, where he traveled to China, and they brought North Korean students over, and he acted as their photographer and kind of like a documenter. And he made a film about that. He pretended to take photos, but he took a lot of video, and he did interviews as well. And he also made a friend there, a friend that he wouldn't have made if he had not chosen to make that documentary, I feel. And through that, he was able to gain this kind of friendship, a very rare and special friendship. And I took that as an experience, as a tidbit to approach my film, is that like a lot of the decisions I made in my life helped me end up to where I was when I met my friend Aiden as well. And without those experiences, I wouldn't really have a story to tell. And without that guidance from other people and that trust in myself, then I wouldn't have been able to tell my story as well. So I was very humbled and very appreciative of all our mentors, including Kat Jamie, who's from Vancouver. She made the Vancouver Grizzlies one, and that's a huge idea. And she was able to bring that to fruition through a personal experience. And I think that's the easiest and most effective way to tell a story, is really to bring it out from within.
No, that's great, Aiden. Thank you. You're also reminding me of a funny moment when we had Kat come visit us, because Kat is such an advocate and such a fan of the Vancouver Grizzlies. There was a moment where I think several of you did not even know that Vancouver once had a basketball team, so which was that was pretty funny. Yeah. But it's okay, not everybody's a sports fan. That's all right. But Anj, I'm wondering what was some of your experience with some of the mentors and guest speakers that we had?
Yeah, I think just to go on the topic of representation, like it was so kind of eye-opening in a way, and humbling to see all of those people who kind of like laid the groundworks for generations like us who are looking forward and want to succeed. Like just the fact that an institution like Real Asian exists, right, is kind of mind-blowing to me. But yeah, so for the mentors specifically, first of all, they were like a fountain of knowledge that was super, it was great to have access to them, and also they were all really, really nice. But to rebound off of what Aiden said, the distance that they were able to provide us with their like comments and their advice was extremely helpful, and my film would not look at all like the way it looks right now if it were not for the consistent comments and kind of lessons that we got throughout the program. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if did Marianna or Hyung, did you want to talk a little bit about that process of kind of going a little bit back and forth with your mentor? Maybe Marianna, can we talk about how you worked with Anne?
Yeah, no, it was great. We had a lot of meetings, and Anne's just so knowledgeable. Like she's done like exactly like what I was doing too with stop motion animation. Not that I would never compare my work to hers. Hers is like, and I'm just at the start. But yeah, like just having those conversations, and it was like informal, so I felt very comfortable to just be like, well, I've never done this, like is this right, like why should I do this next? So And because she's done like the same thing, she was like, she knew at every like a point of the journey like what to tell me, or like, oh no, don't worry about that, or like, you'll figure that out as you go. So just having that constant like comfort as well as guidance was really helpful. Yeah, and just like, and I think it's great having these mentors who not only are doing the same thing you are, but they have similar experiences too. So I felt, for me personally, like Anne really understood what I was trying to say, and she had experienced some similar things as well. So I think having someone who knows that experience, it made me feel more comfortable to open up and then actually dive into what I wanted to talk about, and not to be so scared. So yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah, and Hyung, maybe you can, if you have anything to add on to that about your experience with Leslie.
Yeah, I would, like, for all the mentors, like everyone said, they just have such a wealth of knowledge and experience, that I found so many times I would have an issue with the film or the filmmaking process, but I wouldn't know exactly what it was, and Leslie would be able to pinpoint it for me right away. And I was really appreciative of the fact that, one, Leslie never tried to control the film in one way. She was very much about giving me different options, giving me different perspectives and sort of alternatives to think about my film, and like kind of the unrelenting kind of faith she had in the film process, where I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable or confident in a certain direction, but Leslie would be very much like, you can trust your own process and it will turn out great. So I'm super thankful to Leslie. She was like 10 out of 10.
And as I mentioned, we did have a really great discussion with all these 4 mentors. So you can go to realasian.com and watch that. It's archived now, so go check that out. Also really need to recognize Jennifer Su and Haris Kadri, who ostensibly were not mentors, but really were mentors in that they were the 2 program coordinators for this program. They are Unsung Voices alumni themselves, and they were fantastic, and there's no way any of this could have been pulled off without them. They put so much work into running the program and working with all of you individually as well. So, and they were just such a great resource, especially having gone through the experience with you all, before you all, and with you too. So I like when the films were getting done, I was just like so thankful for Haris and Jen. So definitely wanted to give them a shout out. So we have a few questions coming in from the audience live, so I'm gonna start with these. So so the first question is, sorry, I'm gonna squint a little bit. So this is a question for all of you. What was the most challenging aspect of telling your story / making your film? So maybe Aiden, let's start with you.
I'd have to say the logistics of actually leaving my house and having to get a crew, I guess. It was just 3 of us, but we went through, there's a lot of processes that have to go down before we can actually travel. We visited a doctor, we did all those things. We made sure that there were no active cases anywhere. And while we were there, we kept to ourselves. And I think that really helped that filmmaking process, that we didn't really interact with too many locals. And it seemed like it was a very streamlined process, but it was challenging to get that aspect done. And of course, with the editing of the film, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, that was also very challenging, because you almost think that the film is done once you're finished filming it, because in your head you've already edited it, it's perfect. But in your head, that's not where a film should be. And it was great to go through that process, obviously. But it was definitely challenging.
No, thanks for mentioning how some of the health and safety protocols and steps that you went through that were particular to your region too. So because there's another question that is asking a little bit about that. Maybe Anj, we can kick it over to you. So kind of a combination of those two. So what was really challenging for you in telling your story and making your film, and maybe what were some of the things that you, the steps that you went through on the logistical side to make sure that things were done in a safe way this summer?
Yeah, so for the first question, I think definitely the most challenging aspect was just an issue of confidence, because I had always had this very precise idea of what a film director is supposed to kind of look like and act like, and kind of take up all of this space. And I didn't think that I fit into that, and that I would be able to kind of lead everybody. But in the end, once I got there, it kind of just became natural, especially because I kept my crew very small, like Aiden, because all the, like, it was just way safer to keep it small. So that's definitely the lesson that I learned, that in the end, like, it's like my idea of what a director should be like was kind of shattered in that sense, and it was liberating. As for the public health restrictions, I think first of all, with the partnerships that were established with the local film equipment organizations, like, the equipment was quarantined, and we made sure that everybody was tested, and that like Aiden, there were no active cases as well, like just with cleaning everything and like making sure that we washed our hands, we didn't stick close unnecessarily. That all made the atmosphere much more relaxed in that sense, because we kept safe. Oh,
thanks. So Marianna and Hyung, I mean, I guess the question of like health and safety stuff is a little bit moot, and maybe you can talk about that too. But what was the most challenging aspect? Maybe Marianna, we can go with you.
So yeah, me and Hyung both kind of did some animation, so kind of just holed up in your own apartment, like by yourself doing things. So health and safety is kind of just limited to you. So no worries really about that, just staying safe, cleaning everything as well. But yeah, I think for me, maybe the hardest thing, I guess there's two, like, I guess just literally making it. Like, I'd never done stop motion animation like this with Sculpey before, so that in itself was a learning curve of knowing, what works and what doesn't work. And then yeah, just subject matter wise too, I guess it's a very personal story in film, so I think just getting over the hump of being like, oh, it's okay that I'm talking about this, and I can talk about this, and it's okay, it's okay, it's out there, and I'll deal with that afterwards. But in the last conversation we had, Ange mentioned that how liberating it was. She felt this need to put all these things out, and it just helps her, deal with what's going on inside her head. So I'm taking that and moving forward with that. So yeah.
I think I'll jump on Marianna's answer as well. In terms of the hardest part of the filmmaking was kind of, and I talked to Leslie about this as well, is kind of the idea of accessibility. I'm very used to kind of like hiding behind my words or making things a little bit more vague to kind of get away from like the subject matter that I'm actually talking about, or kind of like how I'm directly, bringing up issues to my parents, in particular with my film. So I think, and I think this ties into the second question of how we collaborated. It was really encouraging to hear from both Marianna and Ange that they are kind of dealing with sort of similar struggles, and the fact that this feeling isn't very unique to my own, but everyone feels it, made it a lot easier to kind of, gather up the courage to just be like, you know what, like, let's just put it out there and then see how things roll.
I mean, it's you are all talking. So we have a couple of questions that are kind of related to that, kind of like how to share stories, personal stories, in a time where people feel more vulnerable. I want to take it back to Marianna, because there's another question that's specifically to you. It says, Marianna, great film with some unsettling yet tender imagery. Your film ends saying you'd rather not be seen at all with all these pressures. Do you have insights on how to help BIPOC women reclaim their power and bodies?
Oh, that's a big question.
Easy.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I had like a super great insight, then maybe the world would be a better place. But, but I don't know. I guess I can only answer like personally, and I think I think it's really just about knowing yourself and knowing what you want can really help, because then you realize like how little you have to do to appease other people, or it's like you don't have to exist for other people. And I guess, yeah, reclaiming your own power and body. I mean, I think that's also like in how you dress or how you look, how you do your hair, you know. I think if you're doing those things for yourself and you're saying like, you know, fuck everyone else's opinions, then that's like, you know, I think that's a great way to reclaim your power in your body. But I mean, I think that's something that everyone struggles with. I certainly do. So I think it's a process, but knowing your values and what you want, I think that's like the first step. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, and just opening it up to the group, that like, you know, was it, you know, you spoke a little bit about how difficult it was. Was there any specific examples that you wanted to talk about? You know, especially in, you know, what the question is saying in amidst this climate where people have felt more vulnerable. You know, both Anj and Hyung, you're taking a personal story. Aiden, you know, you are seeing, it is a personal story to you because it's about your friend. But so I don't know if any of you want to volunteer or with maybe some examples of some things that maybe you weren't sure about, or things you struggled with a little bit.
I guess with my film, it definitely felt like a personal story, because I had to go through a lot of obstacles to even get there as well. It almost felt like I had to convince my parents to let my friend go to another island. And I guess with that sense, it felt like that it felt more of an obligation actually to tell this personal story during this time, because we had this incredible opportunity to work with other creatives and program coordinators and Real Asian as a whole. It definitely felt uplifting, and it felt like a responsibility, and it was one that I'm certain that we all undertook, and we can all be proud of our experience here at Real Asian. Definitely, it creates more optimism for the future. I'm not currently working on too many things because of the way our schedules are, and I'm sure the other participants can agree that we're pretty busy. But to have that sense of time, it almost felt infinite. The possibilities were infinite, even though there was a time sequence for it. And I think I'm just really happy to have that. And it's just something I'll never forget, to just work through an online platform, but to create something so memorable is pretty special for this year. And it felt like a successful one as well.
For sure, definitely. I mean, the fact that, I mean, and I think I told you maybe the first day, it's like, you know, like, it's a long process, but you will finish. You will get to this point where we do a live Q&A with an audience. So to me, that is definitely one part of the success. But Anj, I wanted to kick it over to you. You know, Marianna mentioned a conversation that you had about, you know, feeling liberated by telling this personal story. I'm wondering if you would care to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going to jump off what Marianna and Hyung said. It was quite daunting at first to kind of be like, okay, like this is inspired by some experiences that I had, which are not very merry-go-lucky. But once we, you know, got to know each other more, because we had the opportunity to, you know, like chat after our more formal Zooms, and kind of realizing that everybody has had similar experiences, and that we all share, like, you know, some maybe some pain that comes from being either a first-gen immigrant or a second-gen immigrant, growing up Asian in like a predominantly white neighborhood. And once we realized that we had all of these shared experiences, despite being from totally different provinces, I think just that was liberating, and then to be able to translate it further into artworks, it definitely was a very cathartic thing to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Hyung, you know, it is personal, not only your film is not only personal in terms of your own conceptions, but it's personal because it's family. It's personal because I'm sure you're worried about what your parents might think. So maybe you can expand a little bit about that, some of the challenges that you had in feeling vulnerable. I mean, you spoke about it a little bit, but maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, I think religion is always a very
you're also talking about that too. Yeah. Spirituality, right?
Yeah, I think it was I got a very awkward phone call. I'm not gonna lie, from my parents. They were very, I think, like, confused was like the main feeling, and they were kind of taken aback. But I think you kind of need that in life for things to like grow and change. I was definitely I was more afraid of the fact that I would kind of deeply hurt my parents in some kind of way, but I've kind of realized they're a bit stronger than that. And, you know, they're not as like one-dimensional as sometimes we make them out to be, whether if it's because of their status within churches or because of just of our initial fears. So I think it was really scary, but once you take the jump, it's kind of like you get very unexpected results. So I think for me, the biggest thing was just overcoming that leap and kind of taking trust in, you know, my family is family in the end. Spiritual, you know, religion aside, we're family first. So yeah, I think that was the biggest fear that I had to overcome, and it was not that big of a deal, which is nice to see. Yeah. Other than that, I think everything else was just, you know, being very unconfident about the film being like good, the fact that it's being shown to so many people, which I think are common fears among any filmmaker and not just unique to me.
Yeah, so I'm curious. You know, you're mentioning that you got to show it to your family and presumably some of you have also shown it to other people, your friends. But I'm curious. You went through the summer together and you saw kind of the work at different points. But I'm wondering, now that you've seen each other's finished works, I'm wondering if you have any questions for each other, and so I'll just kind of open it up to you. So maybe if you want to raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and maybe something that you observed in seeing the final film, or something that you didn't notice before, or yeah. Oh, okay, Marianna, here we go. Thanks.
I don't know, I guess it's not really a question, more of a comment, but because I hadn't seen Aiden and Hyung's finished film, so I was like so excited. Like I was excited to see everyone's, but especially yours, to see the final product. And in Aiden's, I really loved how you compared like you and the other Aiden, like, to the salmon, and I think that was really beautiful. I'll have this image of you two being these fish in the ocean. I think I don't know, it all makes sense. I don't know, it made sense to me in all the discussions we had about your film. Like, it just makes sense. So I really like that. And yeah, and then seeing your film too, Hyung, was like, it made sense as well. Everything, I feel like you just took us into a space, and I was there, and I was like in your brain, which I really liked. So it's just compliments, it's not questions.
Well, that works too. Yeah. I don't know if any...
Same with me, yeah. I don't think I have really any questions, because we spent so much time together with our thoughts, at least, that I think we knew each other's intentions. And it makes me excited to like maybe think of a way that we could work together in the future, because we work in such different mediums and different forms, and we have different styles, but we learn how to get along. And I think that'll really help us in the future if we end up meeting in person, which is a crazy thought that none of us has met in person. But it's all the more special to make that experience worth it when we do see each other and hopefully work together. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump off of that, it's still not a question. Like, it was really, it was quite touching to be able to connect still, despite being on 2D screens and also being provinces away. And so it's crazy now that, because I remember we had a discussion about what our heights were, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, we're this tall, or like something like that. But that's like but that's like the new norm, right? And it was really humbling to see how everybody in the end managed to make such amazing works online, all on their own. Like, it was a very special edition. Yeah. But the fact that we were able to connect so well was, yeah, it was touching. I will let you talk.
I was just gonna say, I guess I'll just jump on this bandwagon, and as this is for everyone at Real Asian. I know this is typically a program done in Toronto and it's very local, but I really enjoyed the fact that we got to have Canada-wide kind of participants come in. I think it's so cool to have someone from Vancouver. Like, Aiden's life is so different from mine. Like, he goes fly fishing, he goes off the grid, which is something that I would never do. And like, seeing it through, like, experiencing it through like Real Asian was was like really amazing. Same thing with Marianna and Ange. Like, I knew nothing about like French film and like Quebecois film in like Canada, but now I'm like so interested to like explore that sphere and explore that scene. So I guess this is just, I don't know, a suggestion or a plea. If we can somehow still include Canada-wide filmmakers in Real Asian for Unsung Voices, like, I think it would be really fantastic.
Thanks for that. It'll be in the fundraising proposals. So, so we'll have a few minutes left. So maybe we can just, I don't know if this is too expansive of a question, but from where you started and where you've seen these films up, what are some of your thoughts about this journey? And then I want to know what's next for you. It doesn't mean you have to be making a film, but what's kind of like what's on the horizons for you. Maybe we can start with Marianna.
Okay. Like, was the first question about like the journey?
Like where you started and then where these films have finished up, and like I said at the beginning of the summer, like, this is kind of like, this is the cherry on top, this is the button.
Yes, it's the dessert.
Like, like, this is the end. Like, I told you it wouldn't be the end until we did this. So yeah,
it's kind of sad. Like, I feel like we spent our summer together, and it was really nice, and I learned so much. I'm like, I don't want it to stop, so it's more motivation to just stay in contact and keep updated and everything that's going on with everyone. But yeah, I think just personally, I think it's cool to see. I'm like, oh, wow, like, or I guess for all of us, I'm like, we did it, like, we made movies. So I'm like, that's so cool, and that's like a new skill that I have now. So I think it's given me a lot of confidence to do more. So yeah.
And anything that's on the horizons for you? Anything next? What are you working on?
Right now I'm in school, but I'm at the National Theatre School, so there's going to be lots of shows. I think there's going to be some live streaming, so I mean, if you go on their website, whenever they're there, I'm sure they'll be available. Yeah.
All right, we're just going to go down the line. So Aiden is next.
Yeah, for me, I just felt like I went on this huge vacation with everyone in this program, and it just felt like a dream the whole time, because I've been wanting to make something significant to me for a very long time, and I felt like I did that, and I didn't do that alone, and I think that was really, really important for me as well, to have that support. And I think going on in the future, that for me to be able to do something that I like has to be with other people, and I just found that really special. And on the horizon, I guess Cortez is like a part one, because there's a bit of a cliffhanger at the end. You don't really know if Aiden moved there, or is ending up there, or is going to come back. So there's definitely a potential for a part two. In a place as magical as Cortez Island, there's stories to tell forever. And we've had a lot of talks about what the future holds, just in that place alone, as people. So I think that's a great opportunity, and a great fabric to have in my arsenal as a filmmaker and as just a person. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for what's ahead. But right now, busy with school.
Yeah. And Anj, can we hear about a little bit about your journey and maybe what some things are coming up for you?
I think, as we've mentioned before, it's basically just you kind of feel invincible once you've like made your own movie online, like, and you know, because we had to be more independent, I think, than if we had been there in person. And it's almost like, at least I wasn't sure that I was gonna like make it through, but then we're here, right? And it feels very kind of surreal in a way, and it gives a lot of confidence. As for things ahead, I'm hosting some like mental health Zooms for like the Asian community. It doesn't have much to do with film, but it's still very meaningful to me. So that's what I'm doing with school.
Yeah, you don't have to do other films, you know, we're well-rounded people here. So thanks for that, Anj. And Hyung, maybe a little bit about your journey and what's next, and kind of take us home here.
Yeah, it was a really busy summer, I'm not gonna lie, but it was like a very fruitful summer. I feel like I've experienced a lot, and I'm really, really thankful for, like, I'm pretty sure we've like iterated tons of times, but thankful for all the people that I've met through Unsung Voices. For me, nothing planned entirely. I am returning to Korea for a bit in January, so there might be some opportunities to kind of do a flip side on this and exploring churches in Korea. So I think that's might be something that's coming up on the table, but I can't promise anything.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. You know, this was a really challenging year. It was so different in so many ways, and I'm just I want to share, you know, sharing the love here too. That like you were just a fantastic group to work with, and I couldn't have imagined it any better, and just so thankful for all your patience. And this is very experimental to us, like, and it was kind of just like whipped together because we had to change course so much. And so really appreciate again your patience, your passion, and all of those post session discussions about mangoes and fruit and desserts and whatnot and people's height. So I really look forward to meeting you all in person, and it's gonna happen someday. And so that's all the time we have. I want to thank Marianna, Aiden, Angelina, and Hyung for joining us. Thank you to Jamie from Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Services. I want to thank our producers, Mimi Vong and Josephine Cruz. If you'd like to discuss more about this program or the festival at large, check out our film forum. And just reminding you that Relation is going on until November 19th. So you have a lot more days to check out films, panels, discussions like this. So tickets are on sale now. Check it out at relation.com. And everybody, please take care and stay safe.